Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. It's been a while since I posted anything because it's been a crazy month, but I am back. So today I wanted to try something a little different. I'm a huge fan of cinema, and I thought it would be fun to highlight some of my all-time favorites from each decade, starting with the 1920s all the way up to the 2010s. With this series, I will be giving you short summaries and reviews, and hopefully you'll want to go and check these out for yourselves. So with that all being said, let's talk about film. So when I started making this list, I already had a few films from the 1920s that I wanted to talk about. As I kept thinking more and more about it, I had come down to two potential films that I thought would be worth discussing before finally picking the one that I really wanted to discuss. However, I feel like I would kill myself if I didn't at least highlight the one that I didn't choose. So for this video, this is an honorable mention that goes to F.W. Murnau's 1922 horror classic Nosferatu. So Nosferatu tells the story of real estate agent Hutter, who travels to a faraway land to do business with the vampire Count Orlok. Soon, Orlok expresses interest in new residents, and even more interest in Hutter's wife, Ellen. The film is an unofficial adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. You see, Murnau and the production company, Prana Films, never officially obtained the film rights. Because of this, many changes were made from the original story, including the names of certain main characters, including the vampire from Count Dracula to Count Orlok. It's long been reported that these changes were made in an attempt to avoid accusations of copyright infringement. And guys, in my opinion, this is one of the scariest movies ever made. The highlight of the film is undoubtedly Max Schreck as the rat-like vampire Count Orlok. Everywhere this character goes, death and plague follow. I mean, how would you feel if you saw this guy standing at the end of a hallway in the middle of the night staring right back at you? It's truly a masterful performance in bringing a strange and yet fascinating character to life for all to see. Another highlight of the film is cinematography by Fritz Arno Wagner and Gunther Krampf. For cost reasons, Wagner only had one camera, and therefore there was only one original negative. Murnau followed everything to perfection, carefully planning out camera positions, lighting, and other related matters. Some of the shots in this film are nothing but perfect examples of Gothic German expressionism and can send chills down one's spine. Murnau brilliantly mixes the style of German expressionism with an undeniably realistic approach. Each shot creates a terrifying atmosphere and makes you feel as if something is lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike at any given moment. Now, because of Stoker's heirs eventually suing the production company, the courts ordered every copy of the film to be destroyed. However, a few of those copies were saved, and the film is now regarded as one of the most important and influential horror films of all time. Sadly, this would be the only film Prana Films would produce, and the studio filed for bankruptcy shortly after the film's release. If you are a true horror fan and are looking to expand your palette, then I would highly recommend this film. It's a silent classic, a wonderful horror movie, and I think if you are just a fan of horror in general, you'll get a kick out of this. Now, it's time to get this official list on the move. For my first pick, I wanted to highlight a film that I consider to be one of my all-time favorites. That movie is Charlie Chaplin's silent opus, The Gold Rush, made in 1925. Chaplin starred, produced, wrote, and directed this comedy about the lone prospector who gets lost during a storm while prospecting for gold. He comes across a lonely cabin where a criminal, Black Larson, resides. Another prospector, Big Jim, stumbles onto the cabin during the storm. As the storm clears, the characters part ways, and the lone prospector makes his way to a town and encounters Georgia, a dance hall girl who he immediately falls in love with. Chaplin was inspired by photos of the Klondike Gold Rush, as well as other stories of the Donner Party, who once became snowbound, resorted to cannibalism, and eating the leather from their shoes to survive, the latter being a comedic element in the film. Chaplin believed that humor and tragedy went well together, and decided to combine the two stories of deprivation and horror into a comedy film. This is one of those films films that I feel like anyone can sit down and enjoy despite it being almost 100 years old. I mean, Chaplin is the king of comedy, and it's wonderful to see his talents shine throughout the course of the film. There are plenty of classic moments that I think everyone has seen parodied now and again. One perfect example is the bread roll and fork dance scene. And the reason I love this scene is because not only is it funny, but it's a brilliant representation of the lone prospector's charm and good nature. Another element of Chaplin's acting in this film is his comedic timing. There's a great scene, it's one of my favorites, where Big Jim and the prospector are in the cabin and they're very low on food. Big Jim's hunger starts to get the better of him and he begins to hallucinate the lone prospector as a giant chicken. And he starts laughing because his mind comes back to him for a second, and the prospector's asking him, well, what's so funny? And he says, oh, I just imagined you as a chicken, no big deal. And when Big Jim explains that to the prospector, Chaplin's reaction is just priceless. Some fun facts about the film that I have here are the film was shot on a budget of $923,000, which today would come out to over $13 million. Chaplin attempted to shoot the film on location near Truckee, California in early 1924, but he abandoned most of the shot footage and reshot everything on the backlot and stages at his Hollywood studio. Fun fact about the studio is that it would later become A&M Records until in 2000 becoming the Jim Henson Company, where it still is today. The studio had elaborate sets of Klondike created for the film, and only the film's opening scene was retained from the first shoot. The film was a major success upon its release and is the 5th highest grossing silent film of all time, bringing in more than $4 million in 1926. Today, that would be inflated to $63 million. This truly is a comedic gem with elements of romanticism, drama, and even some action sprinkled in the mix. With wonderful performances, delightful comedy, and romantic undertones, The Gold Rush is one of the greatest films in the silent era. Today it is considered to be one of Chaplin's finest accomplishments as a filmmaker, and Chaplin himself even stated that he had hoped that this would be the one that he would be most remembered for. And in that regard, I think he succeeded. If you're someone who is interested in learning more about the silent era or just looking for a few good laughs, this movie is for you, and I guarantee you it will lead you down a Charlie Chaplin rabbit hole as it did me. Well, that about wraps up my review for The Gold Rush. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a fun time making it. Rest assured, a new review will be coming your way very soon, this time a film from the 1930s, and I can't wait to share my thoughts with you about it. See you in the next video.